I am a gravedigger, and every day I heard a woman crying outside her grave horror story. Severiano had never been particularly superstitious, but as a gravedigger in the small, quiet town of San Juan, he was no stranger to the stories that surrounded the cemetery. The graveyard was a place of whispered legends and chilling tales, woven into the fabric of the community like shadows at dusk. The old stones and cracked tombs told of lives once lived, dreams now buried, and mysteries left unanswered. It was an ordinary job, one that paid the bills, but Severiano couldn't shake the feeling that something dark lingered just beneath the surface. The days blurred into a routine, the sound of his shovel breaking the stillness, the heavy air thick with the scent of damp earth and decay. But then came that day, the day that would haunt him forever. It was a crisp autumn morning, the kind where the air seemed to crackle with electricity, a harbinger of the chaos that would soon unfold. As Severiano dug deeper into the ground, the echo of his shovel striking against stone reverberated in his chest, a rhythm that felt almost alive. As he worked, a soft, sorrowful wailing floated through the air, barely audible but chilling in its intensity. He paused, the shovel hanging limply at his side. The sound was unmistakable, a woman's cry, plaintive and desperate, echoing from somewhere close by. He looked around, half expecting to see a lost mourner, but the graveyard was as still as a tomb. The trees whispered to each other, their leaves rustling softly, but no one was there. Shaking his head, Severiano dismissed it as a figment of his imagination. He had been working long hours, and fatigue often played tricks on his mind. But as he resumed digging, the sound grew louder, more urgent, clawing at the edges of his sanity. It was coming from a grave that he had never noticed before, an unmarked plot cloaked in shadows, its headstone hidden beneath a shroud of weeds. He approached the grave, his heart pounding in his chest like a drum. The air felt heavier here, thick with a sense of foreboding. The cries intensified, reverberating in his mind, filling him with an inexplicable dread. "Hello," he called out hesitantly, his voice barely above a whisper. "Is someone there?" The sobbing ceased abruptly, replaced by an eerie silence that engulfed the cemetery. Severiano's pulse raced as he glanced around, half expecting to see a ghostly figure emerging from the shadows. But there was nothing, only the weight of the oppressive silence pressing down on him. Determined to uncover the source of the cries, he knelt before the grave, pushing aside the tangled weeds. The earth was freshly turned, as if someone had recently disturbed it. He felt a chill run down his spine. What lay beneath? He picked up his shovel, the metal gleaming ominously in the dull light. With each thrust into the ground, he felt a mix of fear and morbid curiosity driving him deeper, as if the grave itself was calling to him. Finally, he struck something hard. The shovel clinked against a wooden coffin, its surface warped and rotting. A wave of nausea washed over him, the realization hitting him like a punch to the gut. This was not an ordinary grave. The cries began anew, this time accompanied by frantic scratching sounds that reverberated within the confines of the coffin. "Please, let me out," a voice cried, thick with desperation. Severiano stumbled back, terror flooding his senses. His mind raced. Was this a trick? A ghost? He gripped the shovel tighter, his knuckles white with fear. "Who are you?" he shouted, his voice trembling. "What do you want?" Silence fell again, thick and suffocating, as the cries faded into the background, leaving only the oppressive atmosphere of the cemetery. Severiano fought against the instinct to run, the urge to escape the chilling reality of the moment. Instead, he took a deep breath and began to pry the coffin open, driven by a morbid curiosity that he could not shake. The lid creaked ominously as it yielded to his efforts, revealing the darkness within. Severiano hesitated, heart racing, breath quickening. He peered inside, his stomach lurching at the sight. The coffin was empty, save for a tattered, blood-stained dress that lay crumpled against the cold wood. A gust of wind swept through the cemetery, carrying with it the faint scent of decay and something far more sinister, a whisper of malevolence that sent shivers down his spine. As he stumbled backward, the air around him grew heavier, suffocating. Shadows danced in the corners of his vision, twisting and turning as if alive. He could feel something watching him, a presence that coiled around his very soul, squeezing tighter with each heartbeat. He glanced back at the open grave, where the cries had transformed into frantic whispers that clawed at his sanity. "Help me, please," the voice begged, a mixture of sorrow and anger. "I can't rest." Panic surged within him, and Severiano bolted from the grave, the shovel clattering to the ground as he raced through the tombstones, desperate to escape the nightmare that had engulfed him. He stumbled through the cemetery, gasping for breath, the shadows stretching ominously in his wake. Days turned into nights, and Severiano could not shake the experience. The cries haunted him in his dreams, whispering secrets he could not comprehend. He avoided the cemetery, but the echoes of that fateful day lingered in his mind, a dark stain on his consciousness. Each time he closed his eyes, he could see the coffin, the empty grave, and the wailing woman whose identity was shrouded in mystery. Finally, driven by desperation, he returned to the cemetery, heart pounding with dread. He had to confront whatever lay hidden there, had to uncover the truth. As he approached the grave, a storm brewed overhead, thunder rumbling ominously in the distance. Lightning illuminated the sky, casting eerie shadows across the headstones. Standing before the grave, Severiano took a deep breath, steeling himself against the encroaching darkness. He whispered a silent prayer, pleading for strength, then knelt beside the grave once more. "I'm here," he called out, voice trembling but resolute. "What do you want from me?" The wind howled, carrying with it the echoes of sorrow, and the whispers swirled around him, weaving a tapestry of despair. "Set me free," the voice implored, filled with a pain that resonated deep within him. "You must find my remains. My soul cannot rest." Severiano's heart raced as he began to dig, his hands clawing at the earth as he unearthed secrets long buried. With each shovelful of dirt, he felt the weight of her anguish pressing down upon him, suffocating. He unearthed fragments of a life, shattered dreams mingling with the soil. And then, beneath layers of cold earth, he found her, a brittle, decayed skeleton wrapped in the tattered remnants of her dress. A chill coursed through him as he gazed upon the bones, a wave of sorrow washing over him. This was not just a grave, it was a testament to a life unjustly taken, a soul trapped in limbo, yearning for closure. In that moment, Severiano understood the gravity of his task. He had to give her the rest she sought. With trembling hands, he gathered the bones, each one heavy with untold stories. The air thickened around him, charged with an energy that pulsed with every heartbeat. He whispered words of comfort, promising to bring her peace, to ensure she would finally be freed from her earthly bonds. As he worked, the whispers turned to a chorus of gratitude, a soothing balm for his frayed nerves. The shadows receded, replaced by a soft, ethereal glow that enveloped him in warmth. "Thank you," the voice breathed, filled with relief. "You have set me free." With the final bone cradled in his hands, Severiano felt a weight lift from his soul. The cemetery, once a place of darkness, transformed into a sanctuary of peace. The cries that had tormented him faded into silence, leaving only the soft rustle of leaves and the gentle whisper of the wind. As he completed the burial, Severiano took a deep breath, feeling an overwhelming sense of calm wash over him. He stood and looked around, the shadows no longer threatening but comforting, as if the spirits of those long gone were offering their thanks. He had faced the horror that haunted him and emerged not just as a gravedigger, but as a guardian of the lost, a keeper of their stories. From that day on, the cemetery was no longer a place of fear for Severiano. It became a hallowed ground where he honored the lives of those who had come before. And though the whispers of the past occasionally stirred, they were no longer cries of anguish, but soft echoes of gratitude, a reminder that he had played a part in the eternal dance between life and death.